Welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group, bringing you interviews with Colorado's best real estate and mortgage professionals, empowering you to understand the current trends in the housing market so you can make the American dream your reality. Enjoy today's episode.
Well, it's a great day in Colorado, and welcome to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast. Today we have with us Alan Gordon, who's a mortgage advisor with Synergy One Lending. Alan, welcome to the program.
I appreciate you having me here, Mike. How
you are welcome. Yeah, we're looking forward to talking with you because it's always neat to hear people's perspectives on the market, how you serve your clients. And then also, I always love to start off these conversations by saying, give us a little bit of your background, what got you into the lending industry to start with, and give us a little bit of that picture of your story.
Oh, man, that's a long story. So I'll try to keep it fast.
Okay.
I guess in my previous life, I played professional soccer for 15 years. In the MLS, so Major League Soccer, if the listeners are familiar. Spent some time with the U.S. men's national team, so did that for a really long time. Retired when I was about 37, so I was kind of a dinosaur, playing against kids, but I probably did a little bit too long, but gave me a lot of time to, think about what was next. Fortunately, my career was long enough for me to basically, explore all options, I guess. And I guess, the soccer bit of it really kind of led me into mortgage lending and helping people and having a passion for helping people get into homes. I think that when I was young and I was, on the professional circuit, we moved around a lot. So the advice that I was given is never to buy a house. It was really, guys in the locker room said, as soon as you had a baby or bought a house, you'd get traded.
Yeah.
And that was true a lot of the time, but, we weren't really guided in the right direction as far as, buying investment properties and letting real estate, let the market of real estate really help you out and put you on a path towards, financial freedom through real estate, and it should be part of your portfolio, in my opinion. So, while I was still playing, I got my license and I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to educate everybody. I think everybody should have the opportunity to own their own property and pay their own mortgage instead of somebody else's. So that's really what's stemmed, my passion for this industry, and got my license, like I said. And, my next challenge was just to find a great mentor, which I did. And I'm kind of a lifelong athlete in that sense. It's, if I find a good coach, then I feel like I can be a good player. And so that was very, very important to me.
It's almost like if you could hit rewind in life and know what you know now and go back to a certain point in your life, boy, could you imagine how many rental properties you would have owned that you would have lived in while you were in a certain spot, and then you get traded or moved on and then kept it as a rental and buy the next one. Boy, it would have been a whole different story. And now that kind of is a neat way that it's very similar to the stories you see on Shark Tank, where it's like, I had this thing, I had this problem, this need. It didn't exist out there, but it made me think I want to go solve that problem. Well, now you noticed that as a player, and then you're like, how can I help educate other people of the value of home ownership, from the tax write-off to the pride of ownership, and all of that, putting down roots in your community?
You hit it the nail on the head. It is exactly that. And so, I've done the math, and it's, I spent over $250,000 or $750,000 in 15 years of renting properties around the country. When you're paying $4,000 in rent in California, it goes really fast, and so that's it,
Well, if it was a hot day and you wished that you had a shade tree, and you don't have one, and you wish that you would have planted one 20 years ago, so you would have one sitting right there. But then guess what the next best time is to plant one? Now. Well, yeah, you could look back and go, oh, if I had done this, well, fine and good. But at some point you're like, okay, that's the past. Now I'm going to go and make these steps forward. And I think that really helps you be motivated to then work with people to help them achieve that. So did you find when you got into the mortgage industry, did you find that you tend to gravitate toward sports players, or what is your target audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, obviously that was, when you start a sales job and not just mortgage, I think they tell you to, look through your phone and call everybody and tell them what you're doing, right? And so I just so happened over 15 years to know and meet a lot of athletes and entertainers and things of that nature. So that's where I started, just like anybody else. And I think as I looked back, that's a really scary thing to do, because how many people, especially if you're moving around, do you not keep in contact with? And so those calls are scary after a few years and not connecting. And I must have been a semi good guy, in my playing career, because everybody was so willing to help me out. And so I think at first, a lot of my ex teammates, they were like, yeah, we'll give you a shot. If we're ever in the market for, a mortgage, whether it's investment or primary or second home or anything like that, we'll give you a shout. And so that's kind of how it started. And it started pretty fast. I got started kind of in the refi boom. So that certainly helped. And everybody was, everybody knew me, liked me, and trusted me, and so as long as I convinced them that I could, close a mortgage, they were willing to help me out. And so, I mean, kind of fast forward a little bit, I've now, I do like educating young athletes. I think that young athletes, historically in all of the major sports, all of the major sports, I think athletes misuse their money. And they're not advised well, they get taken advantage of. And so I like, them learning from my mistakes, and I tell them my story, and, and I'm somebody that they can trust because I have been an athlete. And, athletes tend to have their guard up because they feel like everybody's coming after them for something and want something out of them. So I do like that. I did join up with a Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment group nationwide. And it's a great network of really trusted advisors that we work together. And when athletes from all different sports, they get traded or they're pick up a contract somewhere else, we work together to help them out in their move.
And I would think that, when you focus on, working with doctors or working with engineers, you kind of learn the lingo. Well, I would have no clue how to speak to a professional sports athlete regarding, locker room talk, or how you would, talk about relocating, and you would have those nuances that immediately would identify you to them as one of their own. Not only you could point to your, past, online resume and go, hey, that was me, but being able just to know their struggles and their fears and like, oh man, isn't it frustrating when? And I would think you become fast friends that way. And then when you can connect up, like with your Keller Williams networking group, that just really helps to give you that credibility as well. And you do a deal or two for some sports athletes, and now you get that referral and that review and testimonial. So when you're typically, what kind of transactions are you working with? Is it right now, as we're speaking, the refi boom is kind of waning. So are you working more with people looking to buy a home? Is it their first home, or are they move up buyers?
I mean, first of all, to go back, I just sent him my highlight tape. That's kind of my play. First off, I just sent him my highlight tape and I say, take a look at this, and then we can have a phone conversation.
Yeah.
So that's how I start with every phone call. No, I'm totally kidding. But but maybe you seem to buy it. Maybe I'll start doing that. No, it is, like my familiarity with player contracts has really helped me out. For example, to give you one small example, my former agent, who's a big agent in the MLS, he called me and said, hey, do you originate in Atlanta? I said, yeah. He said, well, one of our players just got denied for a loan because he's injured.
Hmm.
And so I said, send me the contract and let's take a look at it. And, there was really no big deal. We ended up closing it in 9 days just because we had familiarity. I was able to walk
You knew what
through
to
the
look for.
contract with the underwriter. And so that's where kind of my skill set from my past life kind of coincides with what I'm doing now. That's one of them. To go back to your question now, as I spoke, there's nobody I don't like to work with, unless they're, there's certain people, I guess I don't run into them very often. I think it's a really unique place to be in. And another reason that I love it is because it's a very scary and big purchase.
Yeah.
It's typically, people say it's one of the best, biggest purchases you're going to make in your lifetime, right? Unless, you're buying, a jet or something, right?
Yep.
And so, it's a scary experience for them. And so I like to walk them through it, educate them, slow it down a little bit, make them feel good. I think that's one of my skill sets, is just to calm people down and just let's sit down and talk about it and make you feel good about this. Run some numbers, make sure it fits in your budget. Help them out with, I have a lot of good referrals of financial advisors. And so I like to really, it's not just about me in this transaction. It's really just creating, a circle of trusted advisors for every financial piece of their pie. And so I use others and my referral partners to really help me out with that. And so they feel protected. I want them to feel protected with this purchase. I'm not just a transactional type of guy. I'm very much the opposite. I want you to, we're trying to create raving fans, so,
Yes.
I want you to really enjoy this experience. And that's everything as far as referrals are concerned. And, and so, that's what we focus on. I have over 100 5-star reviews in the short 3 years that I've been doing this. I do focus, as you mentioned, the market's a lot different. So we had to pivot. I was 80 to 20% refi to purchase heavy in the first year, and that's typical. And I've been able to flip flop that because of good mentorship. That basically say, listen, this might be nice right now, but you need to go out there and get great referral partners that you can develop a good relationship with, that are really going to trust you to send their clients to. And so today, as we sit, I'm about 95% purchase to 5% refi, and that's just kind of the market. So I worked really hard to get there, and it's really just getting people to trust you. And so
100%.
As you mentioned, you do one. The locker room is a very unique place, and if you've ever been into a locker room, people, guys are talking a lot, and ladies on the women's side. So whatever they have going on in their life, there's 25 individuals in there that are going to hear about it. And so, you do one, you do a really good job, and then things just start to spread like wildfire.
That's huge. Have you found that some of the observations, not mistakes and failures from your past, but how you observed, oh, wow, if only I could have bought a home, kept it as a rental. Have you translated that into working with some of your clients in the last few years that are athletes, where you're like, hey, look, now we got this home, and they call you up and they go, I just got traded. And you're like, okay, hold up. Maybe we should explore keeping it as a rental, buying something else. Have you found some of that where you're bringing in your strategic alliance partners and maybe having them talk through some of those strategies with them, which is way more than, like you said, just doing the deal?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I chose my title. I could be a loan officer, but I don't like the way that sounds. It sounds very transactional to me. I like the mortgage advisor, because I want to, for every client I have, I give them 4 different options. I put it together on a presentation, and it's very specific. And I put options on there a lot of the times that I don't think is going to be their best options. But, another loan officer who may be less experienced or doesn't go as deep may put them in that product. And we get to sit down and say, these are all decent options, but let's talk about which one's going to be the best for your scenario right now. And so anybody that's, looking to move or get traded or anything like that, we can easily take a look at, their profile and see if we can make it work. I mean, we can use projected rental income to offset their current mortgage in a lot of circumstances. So, and they don't know that, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of things you can do. You can take a HELOC out of that current property, use it as a down payment on your next one, and then rent out that current property, let somebody else pay your mortgage for you. So there's just a lot of good strategies and cool strategies that can really just set people up down the road to be, getting some positive cash flow as they start to retire, and you have, $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000, depending on, how many doors you have. That could be, that's a retirement plan. That's something that, that passive income is something that, everybody should be trying to look for different opportunities to be getting that, because, we live a lot longer these days and money goes fast when it's not coming in.
Well, you mentioned raving fans, and there's a book in the business world called Raving Fans. And I've said this so many times when I do presentations. It's like, okay, how many of you would like to have happy customers? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, no, happy customers are just like, yeah. You want raving fans, and you want them so raving about you that they are actually going out of their way to tell people about you. And I think that when you can take that 30,000 foot view of going, okay, here's this transaction, but let me tell you how I don't look at it as only a transaction, because this is a piece of your entire future, and this could build to be this, and what if that, and when they can tell that you are looking at it way down the road and seeing how this puzzle piece fits into what could potentially be a long-term retirement play, because in the sports world, people, like you said, you're a 37-year-old dinosaur. Well, in real life, 37 is young. So, you're able to say, hey, what if that injury, limits what you can do? You need to have this plan, and this real estate can be a piece of that. So I think that advisor, that being that guide, is so important that people don't realize.
Sorry, Mike. And speaking of raving fans, for the sports fan listeners out there, would you mind telling us just which teams or team that you were on for soccer?
How long do we have? I played. So I did 2 different stints at the LA Galaxy. LA Galaxy drafted me. I did a short stint in my rookie season. I got loaned out to Portland, so I have a familiarity there, which really had a great kind of comeback rookie season. And Portland at the time was a lower division. So I went down there, did really well as a rookie, went back up to the Galaxy for 8 years. Then I got traded to Toronto. I did a short stint there, and then went to San Jose, where we did very well for about 3 or 4 years. After that, I went back to the Galaxy, and then my wife I was ready to retire at that point, and my wife kind of wanted to get out of California. So I took 2 one-year deals, one here in Denver, which it was kind of just a tour to figure out where we wanted to settle and raise our kids. So we came out here, fell in love with it. And then as I mentioned before, I needed a year. I wanted a year of getting paid rather than just sitting around studying. So I took my last year in Chicago. So I played for about 5 or 6 different teams.
That's awesome.
It was a blast.
Yeah.
I raised my kids in the locker room. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, and guess what? I'll bet you that you have so many analogies to winning in life that get related back to the locker room and sports and discipline and, holding yourself accountable, all of these things. Well, those are life lessons that sometimes you can only learn, quote unquote, as we've been saying, in the locker room or on the field, because, man, you get knocked down, get back up. You get knocked down again, get back up. You persevere, all of those things. So I would suspect that even comes out in your working with your clients to go, hey, you sprinkle a little flavor of my sports career in, and I'm just like you, and here's some things to keep in mind. So I think that is spectacular to use that background and that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is. If I was to pick one thing, this is kind of more of a macro level of my lending career in comparison to a client personal relationship. But I think as you start any new career, it doesn't have to be, but sales specifically, it's tough. It's kind of kill what you eat, and I think the one thing that you learn is how to fail. And I think that's the one aspect of my career that I could attribute to any success that I have from here on out is learning how to fail. When you grow up, and when I was young, if you become a professional athlete, you're probably pretty good when you're young, and you don't lose very often. So we're typically poor sports, and we don't lose very well. We have to learn to do it, and then you get to the pro level. And a lot of times when I got there, I'll speak for myself, I was scared to fail. I didn't like people booing me. I didn't like 30,000 fans booing me. And if, I didn't know how to do it, but I had to eventually, to fail, you have to take a chance. So if you're not willing to fail, you will not take a chance. And so that lesson that I learned, I had to be willing to take a chance in front of thousands and thousands of people, knowing that I could completely make a fool out of myself in front of everybody. They could go home, tell their grandkids about it, how I missed the easiest goal of all time. But I wasn't willing to do that early in my career. And once I said, you know what, I'm willing to fail in order to succeed. I think that was the most important lesson that I can carry the rest of my life. I try to tell my kids that, and so in this industry, it was tough for me because as a professional athlete, everybody's coming towards you. They all want a piece of you. And then I came into this weird space of, I would call a real estate agent and they would hang up on me, and I'm like, wait a minute, don't you want to talk to me? Aren't I cool? Like, aren't I nice? And it wasn't about that. So I had to be willing to put myself in a vulnerable position, scary position in order to succeed. And likewise, with any transaction that I did early on, there are things that are going to happen that, you're going to fail. There's going to be there's going to be a learning curve to where things don't go perfectly. And you're going to have to, suck it up, bite the bullet, and have a tough conversation. But as you get bigger, those failures in any career or life, they make you stronger and they make you better. If you're willing to fail and learn from it, it's really the only way you can learn.
Yep.
When things are going good, everything's great, but you're not really learning much.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's kind of like when you are lifting weights and you get the calluses on your hand. Well, that's because you're exerting pressure on your palm, and your skin has to react to be prepared. And I think that's so true. Boy, you get going in a flow of winning, and it's like, wow, everything's working good. But then the first wrench that gets thrown in, and now you're like, oh, now it just got real. So learning to persevere through that is just so spectacular. So I guess, Alan, at this point, boy, people are just really privileged to work with you and draw from your experience in the mortgage industry, having, even just the life lessons of perseverance and diligence. Wrap us up with what's the best way someone could reach out and connect with you and learn more about how you can help them with their mortgage needs.
Yeah, you can get a hold of me. Call my personal cell. I'm always open to answer any phone call, 424-400-4536. Or you can email me at allengordon@s1l.com.
Excellent. And I'll also make sure to have your website link right in the show notes so people could click on that. So thank you so much, Alan. It was a real privilege having you on and learning from your experience today.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Colorado Real Estate Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Trailstone Insurance Group. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.coloradorealestateleaders.com.